From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
These people are just threatening all of us with these dogs. And that woman over there, she was charging them and it bit somebody right in the face.
The dog has blood in its nose and its mouth.
And she's still standing here threatening you.
In North Dakota, security guards working for the Dakota Access Pipeline Company unleashed dogs and pepper spray against Native Americans Saturday as hundreds opposed the construction of the pipeline on a sacred tribal burial site. Democracy Now! Was there. We'll bring you the shocking video.
There's graves there, there's teepee circles there, ceremonial sites, and we will have to defend our sacred sites. We'll have to defend our graves of our ancestors.
The Standing Rock Sioux tribe is heading to court today in D.C. for an emergency hearing demanding a halt to the pipeline's construction. Meanwhile, people are outraged about the tactics being used against the Native Americans who call themselves protectors, not protesters.
And the governor, you know what I feel like telling the governor is that, you are not George Wallace and this is not Alabama, This is 2016, and you don't get to treat Indians like you have for those last 100 years. We're done, Be interesting times.
The standoff at Standing Rock has grown to include members of more than 100 tribes. It's the largest unification of Native American tribes in decades. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The United States and China have formally committed to the Paris Climate Agreement aimed at slowing climate change during President Obama's trip to China for the G20 summit. Combined, the U.S. and China produce nearly 40% of the world's carbon emissions. 26 countries have now ratified the accord, which the UN has slated to go into effect January 1st, 2017, as long as at least 55 countries representing 55% of or more of the world's total emissions have signed on. This comes as the world has experienced 15 straight months of record-smashing temperatures amidst human-fueled climate change. July was the hottest month ever recorded. Experts say the greenhouse gas cuts promised in the Paris climate deal are insufficient to avert dangerous global warming. In Oklahoma, state regulators have ordered oil and gas companies to shut down nearly 40 toxic wastewater disposal wells after a massive 5.6 magnitude earthquake Saturday rocked Oklahoma and sent tremors through 6 neighboring states. Scientists have warned the wastewater disposal wells, which inject toxic water used in the fracking process deep into the earth for storage, may be linked to the dramatic rise in earthquakes in Oklahoma in recent years. The earthquake destroyed at least half a dozen buildings on the Pawnee Nation and another half dozen in the city of Pawnee. This is Pawnee Mayor Brad Sewell.
Well, we had an earthquake that was just unprecedented in this area. I mean, we've had a lot of earthquakes over the last couple of years, and they have been just single tremors and, boom, and it's gone. And right away you could tell this was something different. I mean, this was long, sustained, strong earthquake. Things toppled off of shelves and rattled windows and did all kinds of things.
At the G20 summit, President Obama also tried to assure Asian nations that the United States would in fact ratify the Trans-Pacific Partnership despite mounting opposition.
On the merits, it is smart for America to do it. And I have yet to hear a persuasive argument from the left or the right as to why we wouldn't want to create a trade framework that raises labor standards, raises environmental standards, protects intellectual property, levels the playing field for U.S. businesses, brings down tariffs. It is indisputable that it would create a better deal for us than the status quo.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership is a massive proposed trade deal that would encompass 12 Pacific Rim nations, including the U.S., 40% of the global economy. U.S. presidential nominees Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and Jill Stein have all said they would not sign the TPP. It has faced years of public protest by those who say it benefits corporations at the expense of health and environmental regulations. Meanwhile, at the G20 summit, President Obama also spoke out about NFL 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who's been refusing to stand for the national anthem after saying, quote, "I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color," unquote. This is President Obama speaking in China about Kaepernick's protest.
He's exercising his constitutional right to make a statement. I think there's a long history of sports figures doing so. I think there are a lot of ways you can do it. As a general matter, when it comes to the flag and the national anthem and the meaning that that holds for our men and women in uniform and those who fought for us, that is a tough thing for them to get past, to then hear what his deeper concerns are.
At least 2 other NFL players have joined Kaepernick in his ongoing protest: 49ers safety Eric Reed and Seahawks cornerback Jeremy Lane. Megan Rapinoe of the National Women's Soccer League team, the Seattle Reign, also kneeled during the national anthem before their game Sunday against the Chicago Red Stars. Rapinoe told American Soccer Now, quote, "Being a gay American, I know what it means to look at the flag and not have it protect all of your liberties. It was something small that I could do and something that I plan to keep doing in the future and hopefully spark some meaningful conversation around it. It's important to have white people stand in support of people of color on this," she said. After Obama's trip to China, he became the first sitting U.S. president to visit Laos, where he's pledged $90 million to help clear Laos of unexploded U.S. bombs left from the U.S. secret bombing campaign of Laos during the Vietnam War. Between 1964 and 73, the U.S. dropped as many as 270 million cluster bombs on Laos. Laos authorities say as many as 1/3 of these cluster bombs did not explode at the time. During his 3-day trip to Laos, Obama was also slated to meet with the controversial president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte. But Obama canceled the meeting after Duterte called President Obama a son of a whore and warned him not to ask about his so-called drug war, in which police and vigilantes have killed at least 2,400 people in only 2 months. This is Philippines President Duterte.
I am a president of a sovereign state, and we have long ceased to be a colony. I do not have any master except the Filipino people. Nobody but nobody. You must be respectful. Do not just throw away questions and statements. Putang ina mo.
Son of a I will swear at you in that forum.
This comes as President Duterte declared an indefinite national state of emergency Monday after a bombing in the city of Davao killed 14 people Friday. The declaration does not amount to martial law, but does give the police and military sweeping powers. Militants from the group Abu Sayyaf have claimed responsibility for the bombing. In Syria, at least 40 people have died in a wave of suicide bombings across government-held areas. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attacks in Tartus, Homs, and Hasaka in a suburb of Damascus. The daily blast came after President Obama met with Russian President Vladimir Putin Monday alongside the G20 summit, and after U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov met Sunday and failed to secure an agreement for a ceasefire in Syria. The U.S. and Russia are backing opposite sides of the war between Syrian rebels and the Syrian government, although both countries have said they're fighting ISIS in Syria. On Saturday in North Dakota, security guards working for the Dakota Access Pipeline Company attacked Native Americans with dogs and pepper spray as they resisted the $3.8 billion pipeline's construction.
This guy makes me in the face. Look, it's all over my sunglasses. Just makes me in the face.
these people are just threatening all of us with these dogs. And that woman over there, she was charging them, and it bit somebody right in the face.
The dog has blood in its nose and its mouth.
And she's still standing here threatening you.
Why are you letting her dog go after the protesters? It's covered in blood.
Over there with that dog. I was like walking, throw the dog on me straight, even without any warning, you know. Look at this. Look at this. The dog did it, you know. Look at this.
The Dakota Access Pipeline would carry about 500,000 barrels of crude per day from North Dakota's Bakken oil field to Illinois. The pipelines face months of resistance from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and members of nearly 100 more tribes from across the U.S. and Canada. The Standing Rock Sioux tribe has also sued the U.S. government over the pipeline's construction. On Friday, lawyers for the tribe filed documents showing how the very land where Dakota Access would bulldoze Saturday was, in fact, a tribal burial site. Today, a federal judge in Washington, D.C. will decide whether to grant a temporary restraining order prohibiting further construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline in the area near the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation until the same judge rules on the tribe's lawsuit against the U.S. government, which is expected by Friday. We'll have more on the standoff at Standing Rock with exclusive Democracy Now! Video, as well as today's hearing in D.C. with Tribal Chair Dave Archambault and others later in the broadcast. In news from the campaign trail, a New York Times analysis of Hillary Clinton's fundraising schedule shows she raised $50 million at elite gatherings over the last 2 weeks of August, raising an average of $150,000 an hour. This comes as Hillary Clinton held almost no new conferences in months. She has, however, attended a series of exclusive fundraising events in wealthy vacation enclaves, including the Hamptons, Martha's Vineyard, and Beverly Hills. Both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump did, however, allow for brief news conferences on their planes over the weekend. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is facing questions about his 2013 donation of $25,000 to a political group backing Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, only days after Bondi's office said it might investigate claims of fraud at Trump University. Following the donation, Bondi's office said it would no longer investigate Trump University, which is now facing an ongoing lawsuit arguing the defunct for-profit school defrauded students. In Brazil, police attacked protesters with tear gas, stun guns, water cannons and rubber bullets during a march Sunday in Sao Paulo in support of ousted President Dilma Rousseff. As many as 100,000 people took to the streets to protest the new president, Michel Temer, who assumed power after Rousseff's impeachment by the Brazilian Senate last week. This is one of the protesters.
Because the Timor government is going to look to make anti-democratic reforms that go against the people, and we're here to show that the people still have the power, and that despite the coup, we are here in the street to bring down the current government and call for a new election.
In Britain, the London City Airport shut down flights this morning after 9 Black Lives Matter activists locked themselves together on the runway to protest the climate change impact of air travel on black people worldwide. In a series of tweets sent out by Black Lives Matter UK this morning, the group highlighted how many majority black nations in Africa are most impacted by climate change, even though majority white nations like Britain are most responsible for causing climate change. The protesters erected a tripod and chained themselves together, delaying flights for hours before being arrested. This is a clip of a video put out by Black Lives Matter UK explaining the protest.
The UK is the biggest per capita contributor to global temperature change and the least vulnerable.
According to the UNHCR, by 2050, there will be 200 million climate refugees.
7 out of 10 of the countries most affected by climate change are in sub-Saharan Africa.
Climate crisis is a racist crisis.
And in Puerto Rico, hundreds of people shut down the island's biggest Walmart Monday in protest against the ongoing economic crisis on the island and the companies that protesters say are responsible. Protesters argue Walmart damages the local economy while only providing precarious jobs for Puerto Ricans. Last month, the U.S. Appeals Court ruled against Puerto Rico in its efforts to raise Walmart's tax rate from 2% up to 6.5%. Monday's protest, which shut down the Walmart for the entire afternoon, was organized by the Socialist Workers Movement. This comes after a massive protest last week in Puerto Rico outside a conference hosted by the Puerto Rico Chamber of Commerce on the new PROMESA law, which was passed by the U.S. Congress in June, establishing a federally appointed control board with sweeping powers to run Puerto Rico's economy. This is one of the protesters from Monday's Walmart action.
My name is Melissa Vargas Echevarria. I'm an active member and spokesperson of the Camp Against the Control Board. I'm also a member of the Workers' Youth. We closed Walmart's operations for the day, and in part, this is proof that when the people unite, we win. We need people to keep coming out to these protests so that every multinational begins stepping backward, and we're going to directly affect the ones who affect us directly. While the control board remains, we're going to continue.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. On Saturday in South Dakota, security guards working for the in North Dakota, security guards working for the Dakota Access Pipeline Company attacked Native Americans with dogs and pepper spray as they resisted the $3.8 billion pipeline's construction. If completed, the Dakota Access Pipeline would carry about 500,000 barrels of crude per day from North Dakota's Bakken oil field to Illinois, where it would meet up with an existing pipeline that would carry the oil all the way down to Texas. The pipelines face months of resistance from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and members of nearly 100 more tribes from across the U.S. and Canada. The Standing Rock Sioux tribe has also sued the U.S. government over the pipeline's construction. On Friday, lawyers for the tribe filed documents showing how the very land where Dakota Access would bulldoze Saturday was, in fact, a tribal burial site. On Sunday, more than 500 people marched back to the construction site and held a prayer mourning the destruction of their ancestors' graves. Today, a federal judge in Washington, D.C. will decide whether to grant a temporary restraining order prohibiting further construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline in the area near the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, until the same judge rules on an injunction in the tribe's lawsuit against the U.S. government, which is expected by Friday. Well, Democracy Now! Was on the ground Saturday. We bring you this exclusive report.
Criminals! You guys are criminals! Go get your money somewhere else!
We're standing at the construction site of the Dakota Access Pipeline. It looks like there are at least 3 bulldozers that are, to people's surprise at this moment, actually bulldozing the land. There's a helicopter above, there's security here, and hundreds of people have been marching up when they heard that the construction site is actually active right now.
Look what you did to him! This is our mother! Where are we going to live without this?
My name is Jacob Johns.
And where are you from?
I'm from Spokane, Washington. I'm Hopi and I'm from Oahu.
And can you describe what you see, what they're doing?
They're bulldozing. They're bulldozing and preparing to install a pipeline to go underneath the river.
And above we see a helicopter.
The helicopter itself has been following us and taking pictures, and we're filming them in return.
Come on, guys! We gotta stop this! Why are we standing and watching? Get in there! Stop this!
People have gone through the fence, men, women, and children. The bulldozers are still going, and they're yelling at the men in hard hats. One man in hard hat threw one of the protesters down, and they're marching over the dirt mounds. Some of the security have dogs. The 6 bulldozers are pulling back right now. People are marching forward in their tracks. There are men, women, and children. More security trucks are pulling up. There are some protesters on horseback. Hundreds of people are coming from the main camp. They're climbing up the tracks left by the bulldozers. 6 at least, I've counted, that are now receding.
Protesters advance as far as a small wooden bridge. Security unleashes one of the dogs, which attacks 2 of the Native Americans' horses.
Security has some kind of gas. People are being pepper sprayed. Sir, reporter from New York, what are you spraying people with?
I haven't sprayed anything, man.
But what is that?
Yeah, he just makes me in the face right now. Amy Goodman, this guy maced me in the face.
Show us the label.
Look, it's all over my sunglasses. Just maced me in the face. Dog bit him right now.
Dog on me. This throw the dog on me. Look at this. Look at this.
Let me say.
You throw the dog on me. No, you did it on purpose, man.
Let me say.
Over there with that dog. I was like walking, throw the dog on me straight, even without any warning, you know. Look at this. Look at this.
The dog.
Yeah, the dog did it, you know. Look at this. There. So did it.
Man, your dog just bit this protester. Your dog just bit that protester. Are you telling the dogs to bite the protester? The dog has blood in its nose and its mouth.
And she's still standing here threatening.
You can't put your blame on the dog. You're an evil woman. You can't put your blame on the dog.
against
you. You will live with that.
These people are just threatening all of us with these dogs. And that woman over there, she was charging them, and it bit somebody right in the face, and then it charged at me and tried to bite me, and they're still threatening these dogs against us, and we're not doing anything.
Why are you letting her dog go after the protesters? It's covered in blood.
One of the pipeline security men unleashes a dog into the crowd. Protesters respond using a flagpole and sticks to fend off the dog attacks.
After the protesters said that the dog was bloody from biting them, they then pulled the dogs away, and now pickup truck by pickup truck is pulling away. We'll see what happens. The protesters are moving in to ensure that the security leaves. Let's go check on this woman. What happened?
I just a lot of mace, and the sweat was dripping it in. The sweat was making it run down into my eyes. I had my glasses on, and that spared me the brunt of it, but then the sweat started putting it in.
How are you doing?
I'm great.
What's your name?
Raina Crow.
And what do you think you've accomplished today?
I hope we've accomplished letting Enbridge know that the people of this nation and the people of this world, tribal or otherwise, have withdrawn their social license to pollute water, and that they need to find an honest, nonviolent way to make a living.
Where are you from?
Duluth, Minnesota. I don't know more Duluth.
I got maced twice. I got bit by a dog. I was front line.
Where did you get bit?
I got bit on the ankle where my boot is. So I told them they needed to leave, but the guy didn't believe me. So he didn't want to listen. He stuck his hand out and he maced me. This other guy, and I think he maced a lady too. Then they tried getting the dogs on us, so I was just standing there. I wasn't really doing nothing. That dog ran up on me and it bit around my ankle.
You pushed them back, though?
Yes.
Why is this such an important fight to you?
Because water is life. Like I said, without water, we wouldn't be here. These plants wouldn't be here. There'd be no oxygen. We all die without it. I wish they'd open their eyes and have a heart to realize, if this happens, we're not going to be the only ones going to suffer. They're going to suffer too.
What tribe are you with?
I'm Oglala Sioux, Fu Blood.
From?
Pine Ridge Reservation.
What's your name and where are you from?
Linda Lee Bruner. I'm from Belcourt, North Dakota. I've traveled from Wichita, Kansas. I stand for my grandchildren, my next grandchildren. I already got great-grandchildren that are in the future. I know the 18-year-old and 19-year-olds that are getting ready to come here, they'll fight to the end. We're going to stay here just like in 1836. We're going to go down and wait and wait. This oil ain't going to go through.
We should all walk out together. That's a good idea. Whoever said that.
I am Elvia Ramirez. I come from Arizona, Salt River. I'm in Pima Maricopa tribe.
How old are you?
I am 13 years old.
And why are you out here today?
I am with my family because I believe right here what they're doing is wrong. This is very wrong. They should protect the water. Everybody needs water to live. Water is in us, no matter what.
What about the oil?
The oil should stay in the ground. They should just leave it because they're hurting Mother Nature. Mother Nature is important because without Mother Nature, we wouldn't be here.
No one owns this land. This land belongs to the earth. We are only caretakers. We're caretakers of the earth.
Oh. Do you feel like you won today?
We win every day when we stand in unity. We stand and we fight.
My name is Candy Mossett with the Indigenous Environmental Network.
Is this where the DAPL is being built?
Yes, this is the pipe that is leading up to the river. So what we're waiting for, or what Dakota Access is waiting for, is the easement to go underneath and bore under the water. My understanding was that with the TRO, they were supposed to completely quit construction, but I guess in the oil and gas industry, that's
there
not
were temporary restraining order.
Right. Well, there was a restraining order, and they were supposed to, we all thought, stop construction completely, but they've been coming from the west over here this whole time, these past 3 weeks, ever since you saw the first demonstrations, and obviously now this is how close they are, right across the road from where we've been barricading. So they're continuing to lay pipe up to the point of where they're waiting for the easement to go underneath where they're going to bore. So people are like, why are we going to wait for that? We're not. We're going to go out and we're going to stop the pipeline. We're going to stop it where it is. And that's what effectively has been happening the past few days in nonviolent direct action.
How do you feel?
I feel great.
What did you accomplish today?
We were protecting our water. That's what we were here to do, and that's what we did.
Where are your horses from?
Crow Creek, South Dakota.
And you came from there?
Yes, ma'am.
And so, describe the scene to us.
We protected our water, and we did a good job at doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Voices from the standoff at Standing Rock in North Dakota. That report produced with Laura Gottesdiener, John Hamilton, and Dennis Moynihan. For our radio audience, go to democracynow.org to see this exclusive video. Coming up, we'll go to North Dakota to speak with the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe chairman, and to D.C. to speak with the tribe's lawyer, who's going to federal court today seeking an emergency restraining order against the pipeline's construction. This is Democracy Now! We'll be back in a minute.
Arrows to start a war. 10 hit the core, 3 hit the general as he opens up his front door. No escaping, capture and slaughter all. Check them off, rolling heads, eyes crossed, bullet casings, not at all. 13 arrows split across, many kingdoms lost, empires falling, governed in chaos. Find the messengers, cut their tongues off, let their pen bleed 1,000 scripts, spark a split. Remember this, that I'm not new to this, until my blood the catalyst, the art of war. Genetic manuscripts pierce and move swift. We already won a war way before the blood drips. So put the trust in me to wipe out the enemy. Hit him with some energy, knock him off his feet like a knife full of Hennessy, packing knives. So you better not stand so close to me. 13 arrows for everybody on the ground. It took 13 wars to say this is your world now. Freedom is born, war torn, heart warm. Keep calm and breathe deep. I aim to destroy and crack all the concrete. Broken hearts under my feet. Shattered dreams burning in the pits of the desert sand. Blistered feet and sunburnt, bow and arrow in hand. Nothing to lose, put them down one by one. 13 arrows to choose from. When will they ever understand? Damn, still today fighting over land, stopping these land grabs. Always mountain money in your hand, cause money's on your mind. It's not enough money to pay attention to all these government crimes. Reservation wide, we do this all the time. Digitize and digitize. Yeah. 13 arrows to kill them all.
13 Arrows by Che Christ and Indigenize. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As we continue our coverage of the standoff at Standing Rock, which we have just returned from. On September 3rd, the Dakota Access Pipeline Company attacked Native Americans with dogs and pepper spray as they resisted the construction of the $3.8 billion pipeline on sacred tribal burial site. On Saturday, Native Americans were shocked when they went to plant their tribal flags at the construction site and found the bulldozers working over the weekend. On Friday, lawyers for the tribe had filed documents showing how this land was a tribal burial site. Now many fear that many of the graves and artifacts are destroyed. Well, today a federal judge in Washington, D.C. will decide whether to grant a temporary restraining order prohibiting further construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline in the area near the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation until the same judge rules on an injunction in the tribe's lawsuit against the U.S. government, which is expected by Friday. For more, we're joined by two guests. Jan Hasselman is a staff attorney with Earth Justice. Jan is representing the Standing Rock Sioux tribe in its lawsuit against the Army Corps of Engineers over the Dakota Access Pipeline and headed to federal court today for that restraining order. And Dave Archambault is the chair of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Chairman Archambault, we just came back from North Dakota, having filmed what took place on Saturday, which shocked everyone. The dogs and the pepper spray unleashed on Native Americans who were protesting or, as you say, protecting the area that the Dakota Access Pipeline is being constructed on. Can you respond to what took place?
Thank you, Amy, for being out there and capturing all the footage. There's always two sides to the story, and law officials try to portray that they were attacked by an angry mob and it was a riot scene. But that was not what was taking place. We had protectors who were concerned about the land, and it just goes to show what kind of company Energy Transport Partners is. They have zero policies on community relations, zero policy on human rights, zero policies on indigenous rights. And so when a company is like that, they have no social responsibility and they don't care about anything. And they hire security companies with untrained handlers. And these handlers, the dogs were attacking the handlers. That's why they release dogs into the crowd. And then they go and try to recover them. It just doesn't make sense, and it's not right what this company, Energy Transport Partners, is doing. They say they have every right to be there, but so do we.
On Monday, a Dakota Access spokesperson issued this statement saying, "We are greatly saddened and extremely bothered to confirm that unwarranted violence occurred on private property under easement to Dakota Access Pipeline, resulting in injury to multiple members of our security personnel and several dogs. It's unfortunate that what's been portrayed as a peaceful protest by the opponents of the pipeline has now turned to violence and intimidation by a group of criminals and activists. Assailants broke through a fence, attacked our workers. We're working with law enforcement to ensure that all offenders are arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." Chairman Archambault, can you respond to what they said? The county sheriff repeated this, though what was shocking also is that the local law enforcement were not there over this whole period, so they simply repeated what the company said.
Yeah, the company provoked this whole thing, and law enforcement, from what I understand, they observed everything, and it wasn't until the company came forward and assaulted one of the protectors when the protectors crossed over the boundary. But there's a question there. Like we always said, we have a right to our treaty lands, and we have a say. The company, the U.S. government, the state government never got permission from us to be on that land, to do this to our lands.
When you say protector, can you explain, using this term protector rather than protester?
The protesters is somebody that is standing there waiting for confrontation. A protector is going to do what it takes on the ground to make sure that nothing negative happens to our indigenous rights and our indigenous lands. One other thing, Amy, is, when the law enforcement came, it dispersed peacefully, and the law enforcement only took statements from the security company. We had individuals, we had witnesses, and you exposed a lot of this with your coverage, but we had witnesses and we had people who had injuries as a result of the confrontation, and we had a lot of people with pepper spray, but the law enforcement said they wanted to do a thorough investigation. Before they did that, they start releasing statements, and it's just one-sided by reports by the law enforcement. They should have got both sides.
I mean, the use of dogs, you're the chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. Have the state authorities or the county authorities explain to you how it was that the company security unleash these dogs, both on leash and unleash them on the protesters, biting a number of them. As people could see in the report we just played, you had a dog there whose mouth and nose were dripping with blood as the security guard who was holding that dog, even when I pointed this out to her, and others certainly did, moved on to attack other members of this protest. What has the county authorities said to you about this? They have to answer to you.
First thing I did was I asked the law enforcement, where did this company get these dogs? Was this something that law enforcement supplied? When I asked the question, they said no, they had nothing to do with it. The company hired someone to get these dogs, and there was a lack of training on how to handle the dogs. And they were using the dogs as a deadly weapon. And that's something that needs to be looked into, is who was handling these dogs and whose dogs were they, and why were they being used? This was all premeditated. They knew something was going to happen when they leapfrogged over 15 miles of undisturbed land to destroy our sacred sites. They knew that something was going to happen, so they were prepared. They hired a company that had guard dogs, and then they came in and they waited. And it was, by the time we saw what was going on, it was too late. Everything was destroyed. The fact is that they desecrated our ancestral grave sites. They just destroyed prayer sites, and it's disturbing. And that's why we're filing for the temporary restraining order. They need to stop working. This company needs to go away. Energy Transport Partners is a bad company.
Energy Transfer Partners is working for the Dakota Access Pipeline to build it. I want to turn to Jan Hasselman, who's an attorney with Earth Justice representing the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. Can you explain what you filed on Friday? You're about to go to federal court today, but what you filed on Friday and then what happened on Saturday and how that relates, you believe, to the information you filed Friday with the court.
Sure. Thank you for having me here, Amy. So I think it's important to emphasize that the tribe has been using the lawful process to vindicate its important legal rights in this matter. It participated in the administrative process around the permits, and when its concerns weren't listened to, it brought a lawsuit. So on Friday afternoon, we filed some very important evidence in the lawsuit about the discovery of some sacred and major culturally significant sites that were directly in the pipeline's route. And it was miles away from where any construction was happening. And we filed this evidence with the court Friday afternoon in order to support our claim that there should be a timeout on construction until some of these legal issues can get resolved. We were stunned and shocked to hear that they took that information and Saturday morning over a holiday weekend went out and bulldozed the entire site. We have a sworn declaration from one of the tribe's cultural experts that describes some of these sites, multiple grave sites and burials, very important archaeological features of the kind that are not found commonly. And we put all that in front of the court. And the next morning, it was gone. The shock and anguish felt by tribal members at this abuse of the legal process is really hard to describe.
So are you suggesting you basically gave the court what the Dakota Access Pipeline Company and Energy Transfer would use as a roadmap to destroy?
That looks like what has happened here. In the lawsuit, Energy Transfer said to the court that we hadn't proven that there were sacred sites or important sites in the pipeline route, and they claimed to have looked with their private consultants. So we went and provided exactly the evidence that they said that we needed to provide. And 12 hours later, the bulldozers were out.
How had you surveyed the land to establish this?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that this all used to be theirs. It all used to be the tribe's land, and I think everybody understands it was taken from them, and it was taken from them in a way that's not acceptable. But it's owned by somebody else now, and that landowner invited one of the tribe's cultural experts out to come take a look, and he was sympathetic to the tribe's concerns, and he wanted to understand why people were so worried about this pipeline. So a few days prior to Friday, Tim Mentz, the tribe's expert in these matters, went out and conducted a formal archaeological survey in keeping with state and federal protocols. And he went out and he built maps of these very unique and important archaeological sites and the locations of these burials that were right in the pipeline's way. And that's the information we put together and put in front of the court on Friday.
So what's going to happen today in federal court?
Well, what's particularly shocking about this event is that we're days away from getting some kind of resolution on these legal issues. We were in front of this same judge 2 weeks ago, or less than 2 weeks ago. We expected a decision on our request to stop the pipeline while the issues are worked out. He said he would have that decision this week. They went out over a holiday weekend, just days before that event, before that decision, and tore up this ground. So we're going back to court. We're asking the court to impose a timeout on additional construction here in the area of the Lake Oahe crossing at the Missouri River, at least until the court has a chance to issue a decision on the injunction motion sometime this week.
On Saturday morning, when we went out to the camps that have been set up, I mean, this is quite something, this largest gathering of Native American tribes in decades. We went to the Sacred Stone Camp, which was launched on April 1st on the land of the Standing Rock Sioux tribal historian LaDonna Brave Bull Allard. She told us about the repression and surveillance they've faced since the camp began.
So from the time we started the camp, April 1st, the helicopters and the planes, low-flying planes, have been here almost daily on a routine. We have the drones that come in the evening. We know they are infrared because they come in at night. They come through the whole camp. And when the people were gathering, the planes were numerous here. The helicopters are numerous here. We have been under surveillance. Right now, today, we have 4 large boats out in the river over by the access site.
I wanted to go back to Dave Archambault, the chair of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. Can you explain what LaDonna Allard is talking about?
So this all started with a prayer. Our kids were the first ones to say, we don't want oil going underneath our water. So they had a prayer walk. And soon after that, it was called Spirit Camp in the beginning. And there was a staff that was put up, and people would go out and pray to stop this. So what's happening is it's always been a peaceful, prayerful standoff. And I think what happens is the company or the government or whoever it is that's surveilling doesn't understand how peaceful, prayerful standoffs work. They look for confrontation. So that's what they know how to deal with. But when it's prayerful and peaceful, and when it's something that the youth want, they have to try to figure out how to deal with us. And they send out aircrafts to check on the status. They're probably trying to find out how big the camp is growing. And from April 1st, it was relatively small. It was a small camp, and it didn't start growing until the company gave a 48-hour work notice to our Tribal Historic Preservation Office. Once that notice came, then the camp started growing.
I wanted to turn to Kenny Frost. We spoke to him at the Red Warrior Camp on Saturday morning, a consultant from the Southern Ute tribe, about the lack of internet and cell phone connection at Standing Rock.
When the protectors came here defending the water, the governor of North Dakota pulled all emergency services out of here because they were helping the people. And when they pulled those services and then realizing what was happening, they cut all cell reception here as well. So all the cell signals that was once here is no longer here, but is only limited on high ground.
What's the point?
To cut off communication, because communication was coming out of here rapidly and as quickly with information to the general public, the whole wide world, basically, because of the internet, which is World Wide Web. And people were receiving information of exactly what was going on real time. And because the call went out for Native people and all people to come here to help preserve, protect, and defend the water.
That's Kenny Frost of the Southern Ute tribe, talking about the lack of internet and cell phone communication. So the companies, the government are surveilling all of you, Chairman Archambault, but it's increasingly difficult for you to communicate with each other. Can you elaborate on what he's saying?
Amy, let me let you know that I live here in Cannonball. This is where my home is. I used to run horses on the land that LaDonna Allard set up the camp. And I'll tell you that this cell coverage has always been a problem. This isn't something that just happened overnight. I ride horse through the valleys and everything, and there's just poor cell coverage, and that's how it's always been.
Now, has it become increasingly difficult, even starting with a bad situation?
It's the same as it was a year ago. I have a cell phone, and I would ride horse, and that's why our tribe, tried to start its own cell phone company. We have Standing Rock Telecom, and it's just to increase cell coverage for our members so they have better service. But it's always been the same. The cell coverage has always been poor, especially in that valley.
And Chairman Dave Archambault, as we wrap up, and then we're going to move on to talk about where these dogs are from, how they were used. We'll be speaking with a dog expert, and then talk about the companies, the kind of chain of command and ownership going back in the Dakota Access Pipeline. This gathering, how unique it is. I mean, you yourself, Chairman Archambault, were just recently arrested. But this gathering of more than 100 nations, I saw you Friday night in the main camp as you were welcoming yet another tribal group coming from Montana. How significant, how unusual is this?
It's powerful. It's one of the most beautiful things that I'm fortunate to witness. I think when tribes come together in unity and with prayer, there's a lot of healing that is taking place. And the tribes that are all coming, every one of them will share a story on how the government or how the corporate world has infringed on their indigenous rights, has infringed on their indigenous land, has contaminated their environment or their water in one way or another. And this unity coming together just says it's time to stop.
Dave Archambault, we want to thank you for being with us, Chair of Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, speaking to us from Cannonball, North Dakota. And Jan Hasselman, attorney with Earth Justice in Washington, D.C. He's headed to federal court today to get a restraining order against the further construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. When we come back, where were these dogs from? What were they trained to do? Stay with us. Women singing as they made their way down to the water from the main protest encampment on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, moving down to the water to perform their water ceremony as they seek to protect the Cannonball and Missouri rivers from the Dakota Access Pipeline. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman as we continue our coverage of the standoff at Standing Rock.
And the governor, you know what I feel like telling the governor is that, you know, you are not George Wallace and this is not Alabama. You know, this is 2016 and you don't get to treat Indians like you have for those last 100 years. We're done. You know, it'll be interesting times.
That was Winona LaDuke, longtime Native American activist who had set up her teepee in the Red Warrior camp in North Dakota Saturday morning. Well, as the video of Saturday's action went viral, people immediately began comparing the dog attacks at Standing Rock to the violent crackdown against civil rights in Birmingham in 1965 in Birmingham, Alabama. For more on the dog attacks at Saturday protests, we're joined by Johnny Joyce. She's an expert in law enforcement canine handling with more than 25 years experience. She's head of the consulting firm Johnny Joyce Seminars International in South Dakota. Johnny, welcome to Democracy Now! We just played the video of dogs attacking the Native Americans, hundreds of people who had come up on the site to protect their land, the tribal burial ground and the sacred sites. The dogs that the security at times unleashed that bit the horses, that bit the people. One dog, the mouth and nose of the dog were dripping with blood. As you took a look at this video, what could you tell us about what these dogs were trained to do?
Well, Amy, first of all, thank you for having me. And I'm very happy that Democracy Now! Was there in order to get independent video in reference to what happened with the dogs. Your question is, what were the dogs trained to do? What the dogs were not trained to do was to be professional security dogs or professional law enforcement dogs. What I witnessed on the video was absolutely horrific and a chaotic scene. It appeared that the handlers were not trained properly in order to manage a dog that has been trained in some type of controlled aggression. And basically what it looked like was a bunch of alligators at the end of leashes being put on the Native Americans there that are protesting. It absolutely was an egregious use of canines.
Can you explain what bite work is?
Yes, bite work is a terminology that is used in the working dog industry to where a canine is taught to bite a human being. And in this process, in the training process, the human being is protected by gear. Law enforcement will utilize type of training in order to protect handlers and deal with criminals that need to be brought under control with this level of force. What happened there at the protest, in my opinion, was an excessive use of force by civilians that obviously did not have proper training in the utilization of dogs that are trained to bite humans.
We interviewed one person after another who were bitten by dogs. And as one of the security was holding the dog, whose mouth and nose were dripping with blood, I said to her, "Your dog is biting protesters." She simply moved down the line, and the dog moved on to attack more of the Native Americans who were there.
Yeah, and that particular part of the video, the female handler with the black dog moved away from you, and this is of particular concern to me in reference to this because she moved down the line, and then there were about 6 protesters that were approximately 15 feet in front of her, and without the protesters moving forward or making any aggressive act towards her, she pushed her dog into the crowd. And you can see on the video that the dog had enough sense not to go in the crowd. The dog actually backed up, and then she corrected the dog and pulled the dog into the crowd. And this is especially concerning in reference to this application of the use of force, and it certainly provides evidence that these people were improperly trained.
We are trying to establish where the dogs are from. There were Ohio license plates, and on Facebook, a company, Frost Kennels in Ohio, is said that they were their dogs that were used. Do you know them, Johnny Joyce?
I do not know Bob Frost, and I do not know Frost Kennels. I do know that he has taken credit for this. This is of particular concern because in the state of Ohio, guard dog services are covered and regulated through the Ohio Department of Public Safety. And in order to provide guard dog services and furnish guard dog services, you have to be licensed through the state of Ohio. At this time, searching their public database, the name Frost Kennels, the name Bob Frost, and then the name of another handler that we believe was involved out there does not come up as being licensed through the state of Ohio. Well, so therefore, I'm making a complaint with the state of Ohio for them to determine whether or not Frost Kennels has the proper licensing in order to provide dog services.
Well, I want to thank you for being with us in the question of what they're doing in North Dakota. We want to thank you, Johnny Joyce, expert in law enforcement, canine handling with more than 25 years' experience, head of the consulting firm Johnny Joyce Seminars International in South Dakota. This is Democracy Now! Well, Saturday was also the first day of a two-week call for actions against the financial institutions that are bankrolling the $3.8 billion Dakota Access Pipeline project. A new investigation has revealed more than 24 major banks and financial institutions are helping finance the Dakota Access Pipeline. The investigation, published by the research outlet Little Sis, it details how Bank of America, HSBC, UBS, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, J.P. Morgan Chase, and other financial institutions have combined extended $3.75 billion credit line to Energy Transfer Partners, the parent company of Dakota Access. For more, we're joined by the author of the investigation, Hugh McMillan, a senior researcher with Food and Water Watch. Hugh, you only have a minute here. We'll continue the conversation after the show and post it, but tell us what is most significant to understand. What companies and banks are responsible for this project?
Well, there's too many to list in a minute, that's for sure. It's 30 plus, all told, on the order of 10 billion that is backing the Energy Transfer family of companies. And really, this is a slice of the much larger fracking pie for these banks. These banks have succeeded in equating energy security in this country, and more precisely in North America, with widespread fracking. This action, I think we can look forward to a history that is kind to the Sioux in helping us question whether that's a good idea.
Can you explain who owns the Dakota Access Pipeline company and Energy Transfer Partners?
Yes. So behind this pipeline is it's a joint venture of joint ventures. It's typically opaque. You have the key players are Energy Transfer family of companies. You have Marathon. You have Phillips 66, and you have Enbridge. Enbridge and Marathon both bought in just a month ago for $2 billion.
And the banks?
Well, the banks have set aside some $7.75 billion for the Energy Transfer family of companies, and through work with Rainforest Action Network, we also know that $2.5 billion has been provided specifically for this pipeline by
Hugh
some
McMillan, we're going to have to leave it there.
banks.
We'll post the rest online at Food and Water Watch. Special thanks to Laura Gottesdiener, John Hamilton, and Dennis Moynihan. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for joining us.